Okay, so this is part two, 2021 version of what's going on with my health. So, um, if you didn't watch part one, that kind of explains everything that happened last year up until from June 2020 until the end of January 2021. So there'll be a video about my pregnancy, which is a whole nother thing. And Paul and I were feeling really good. We made it through my mastectomy. We were almost at the end of this pregnancy, and it was my last pregnancy. I won't be having any more children unless God does something crazy. um, and we were feeling good. We were looking forward to getting our daughter here. We knew it was a girl, and kind of dealing with the normal pregnancy things. It was a tough pregnancy. And this was at the end of January this year, 2021, when I was laying on the couch. Paul was downstairs working, building an office in the basement. And I was laying on the couch, and I'd been told to do a breast exam because since my margins were not clear after surgery, I was advised, just every month or so, do an exam, because if cancer did come back, it would most likely come back very close to the surface. They actually told me around the 12 o'clock area, which is where the margins were a little iffy. And since I have an implant and I don't have a lot of tissue around there, it'd be easier to feel, which were all good things if it did come back. But I will tell you that I wasn't the best at doing exams because it's just kind of scary every time I did an exam. This was the second time in my life, when I was 19 and then when I was 32, where I did an exam and I felt something, and then it turned into, the first time it wasn't a big deal, but still a surgery, and then the second time turned into a cancer diagnosis. And so I just kind of got a little anxious when I would have to do an exam. But I was laying on the couch watching some TV, and I did an exam and I felt something, and it was pretty alarming. And at this point, I was 37 weeks pregnant, so just weeks away from my due date. And I immediately was overcome with anxiety and fear, and just kind of it was just really upsetting because I didn't want this. And oddly enough, the week before at my OB appointment, I asked my OB to do a breast exam because, it's just a good thing to do, and I just wanted her to do it. And I just said, just my right breast, because that's the real breast, just the right breast, do an exam. And she didn't say, okay, I should do both. She just did the right breast instead of my mastectomy side. And I didn't even have any concerns. I just wanted her to do that, and I don't know why I didn't have her do. I mean, honestly, I can't beat myself up over it. We only would have found it a week earlier. But anyways, I felt a mass, and I was very alarmed, very anxious about it. When Paul came upstairs later, I didn't get him immediately because I didn't want to alarm him, but I told him, and he just helped me, and I cried. And when you're pregnant, you're just like, your hormones are crazy and you're pretty emotional. And so that's what, honestly, that was going on. I didn't know what it was, but it didn't feel good. It was in the exact spot where they said to kind of keep an eye out for changes. That night I emailed my oncologist and explained the situation, and I happened to already have another OB appointment the next day because I was on weekly appointments at this point. And I told her I could have my OB, do an exam. So that was the plan. The next day I went in, and she had responded the next morning and told me that sounded like a good idea. And she was also going to set up an appointment for me in the breast clinic. And so I had a new OB at U of M at the clinic there. They rotate a lot of different OBs, and I just had the sweetest OB, a man who I'd never met before, who was a little older, and he was just so loving about this situation and so understanding, and just took it really seriously. And I know that anyone would have, but he was just what I needed. And I hadn't actually had many experiences with male male doctors before in general, but God sent him. He even like gave me a hug, and this is like COVID's going on and everything, and I was okay in the doctor's office, but he could kind of see, just he could see the gravity of the situation, and so he just that appointment, all we really did was talk about my breasts, and he did a breast exam, and then he emailed my oncologist at the hospital there, and this is all within the same hospital, which is, I'm glad I kept all my care at U of M for my pregnancy and the cancer treatments. He emailed my oncologist, and he set up an appointment, or like called the breast clinic to see if they can get me seen like as soon as possible, like even that afternoon if it was possible, which it didn't end up being. That was on a Thursday. The next day, Friday, I ended up going to the breast clinic, and I had like calls, like people, like the doctor hospital was calling me and setting things up. They're all just taking this so seriously. So on Friday, I had a doctor appointment, and they did an ultrasound and a mammogram, and they didn't really give me any results. The radiology team didn't give me any results at the office. Normally they do. They did confirm that what they're seeing, and they saw 3 masses actually. I only could feel 1. 3 new masses on my mastectomy side. One of them they said definitely looked like an oil cyst, which is like a process of the tissue like repairing itself after a surgery like that. And then the other 2 were suspicious, and so they wanted to do another biopsy. This is on the Monday. And afterwards, they actually had me go upstairs to the oncology department and meet with an oncologist nurse practitioner who works for my oncologist. My oncologist wasn't available, and she gave me the results, and she said, this is likely cancer again. And I'm 37 weeks pregnant. I took it well there. If you hear little grunt noises, I have my little baby, Abigail, sitting right here, sleeping, but just kind of making a little bit of noises. She might wake up soon. So she told me it was likely cancer and kind of gave me like 3 different options. She said, option 1, it's the DCIS, which is likely returned. And so in that case, we're gonna induce you early, and then so that we can maybe have a surgery and then do radiation and then hormone therapy. And that was like likely. She said, it could be nothing. She said that's very unlikely. She was very matter of fact, which I really liked. It was very unlikely that it was nothing. And in that case, we're just gonna, get it biopsied and just go ahead and watch it. And go ahead with my, or the original treatment plan, which was just at that point, have the baby and then start hormone medications. And then she said the third option is that it's the invasive cancer that has returned. And in that option, we'll go ahead and do surgery, test for oncotype, see if I need chemo again, and then, do radiation and hormone therapy. So that was like more least likely, but still a possibility. So that was Friday. Over the weekend, we did share, not with a lot of people, but we asked for prayer. I was doing okay at that point. I really was. I was like, okay, this is really unfortunate, but you know what? God knows what he's doing. He always does. And we're going to have to deal with this right now. I was having, some thoughts of like, I don't want to deal with this right now. I just want to have my baby. I generally don't like it when my plans changed, and I thought that God had answered our prayers, and that this was like a thing in our past, and we were just gonna like go forward. And so it was just really heavy on our hearts. Monday comes along, and I have a biopsy done, and then they also, during the biopsy, at the end, I had a meeting with some doctors, and they said that, just to be proactive, we're going to go ahead and schedule for you to be induced this coming Thursday. And so, which, it was only 10 days before my due date, so it wasn't super early, but still, I just was like, oh, I'm going to have a baby on Thursday because I likely have cancer. Wow, okay, I'm trying to be happy. I was trying to be joyful for this baby, and I was, but also I was thinking about everything else running through my head. So biopsy was done. We planned the induction, and then we knew it would be a couple days before we heard back on what type of cancer, or if it was cancer again. But we actually did hear back the very next day, like within 24 hours of having the biopsy. I got a call from my oncologist that it was cancer, and it was the invasive cancer, and it wasn't the DCIS, which is like it's kind of like a pre-cancer. It's still serious, but it's pretty common. And that was, that she said that many times cancer changes due to hormones in pregnancy, and so it wasn't uncommon that this came back as invasive. And so it was pretty serious, but still in my mind, I'm like, okay, so possibly radiation. All right, I could deal with that. That would be slightly annoying. I think you have to go like every single day for like 5 weeks, 5 days a week for 5 weeks or 8 weeks, and it doesn't take very long, but still it's like just switching your schedule. And I'm like, I can do that. It'll be hard with a newborn, but I can make that work. I have a great support system, and that's kind of like where my mind was going. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to kind of put this on hold, put this in another part of my mind as much as I can, but I was planning on just focusing on getting the baby here. So that was Tuesday. Monday biopsy. Tuesday found out it was cancer. Wednesday at dinner, and it was actually the exact same time because we were watching the live stream of our church. And our church had some men come up, and they were praying specifically over our situation and praying about the cancer and about the induction process. And right during that time, I got some test results in because we knew it was cancer, but then all those hormone receptors, we didn't know what type of cancer. I figured it was the same type of invasive cancer, the estrogen and progesterone positive cancer. But we got some test results in my chart that said that it was, it's called triple positive cancer. And so it's estrogen, progesterone positive, and it's also, there's this other hormone receptor called HER2. So it's HER2 positive. And that was completely different than the type of cancer that I had last year. So that kind of threw me for a loop because HER2 positive breast cancer is a breast cancer that when you have it, you have chemo. And I was not expecting to have chemotherapy. I thought we would do the same whole process with this like testing about oncotype, and it would be the same, like a low oncotype score. I was just kind of figuring that would happen. So we found that out the night before we had our baby. And immediately called or text Dr. Benson-Haver, and then she called me right away. And she was really surprised. She said, what? But then she'd like thought about it, and because again of the hormones going crazy when you're pregnant, it's not like super unlikely, but it's just a different type of cancer. And the way it's explained to me is that with this type of cancer, triple positive, I mean, it's not, years ago it was like a more of a scary diagnosis, but it is treatable. And it's a couple small like 1.5 centimeter masses. I also have some calcifications in my breast still that are concerning. And this type of cancer, is treatable, but the way it's treated is with everything. You get chemotherapy, you have a surgery, you have radiation, and the hormone therapy drugs for 5 or 10 years. And so that's literally, and then also with that is like some targeted medication that they're going to give you to kind of like target that HER2, the HER2 portion of the cancer. And so it's everything. But she said that since it's like a blessing in disguise. Yes, it's everything you're going to go through, but you get every single possible treatment to kill and just melt away this cancer. And so it is a long road that we have ahead of us right now. And tomorrow will be 3 weeks postpartum. And it was just a lot. So the original plan was that I already had surgery scheduled. It was supposed to be yesterday. It didn't happen. Originally it was going to be surgery and then chemo and then radiation and then hormone therapy. But after like a week, the tumor board met, and they decided that actually a better option, because they scheduled the surgery before they knew about like the type of cancer, just to get me on the books, just to kind of like get me on the schedule just to kind of get the ball rolling. But then once the tumor board met, they decided the best option would be to do chemo first and then surgery, because then they can watch the tumor shrink and like see how well it's responding, and then they'll know whether I need more chemo after my surgery or whether I can go back into like straight into radiation. And if we do the surgery first, from what I understand, again, this is all way over my head. If they had done the surgery for it first and then chemotherapy, then they don't really have like a tumor or something to watch and to track. And so that was the reasoning behind the switch. And so it was, again, that was another change in plans. And I was doing really good up until I found out I was having chemotherapy. And I know that's probably not, I'm like struggling a little with like figuring out why I feel this way. But I think a lot of it has to do with pregnancy hormones, and I'm not trying to make excuses. But the first diagnosis was, I just cried a tiny bit. Paul cried more than me, probably. I know he did. And this time, there's been lots of tears. There's been lots of cries out to God, lots of cries in the shower. I'm just having a harder time with it. And it took me longer to feel that peace that I felt the first time around. It took me longer to like find God in it. My mind was just clouded with like, why me? And I just want to be a mom. I just want to have like the time, and I still have it, but I just wanted like that time at home with my newborn and getting adjusted to having 2 kids without having to even think about chemotherapy and treatments. And that's been the biggest struggle for me. It took me longer, again, to find peace. And then we reached out. This is like a week. It was a rough first week after having the baby. I was doing good, and then the baby came. Abigail came, and then a couple days later, and I'm sleep deprived. I have crazy hormones, and I'm crying all the time. I'm like holding my 2-year-old crying because she's just growing up, and and I know some of that's normal, but also just like I just feel like my life is being pulled in so many different directions. I want to be a good wife. I want to take care of my house. I want to take care of my newborn and my 2-year-old. But then again, like there's all of this unknown information about chemotherapy and all my new diagnosis that I don't know, that I don't feel like I have time or mental energy to focus on, but it's important that I do that. And so I just feel like just pulled in all these different directions. So that's the plan. It's still really hard. After about a week, we reached out to our church and to our pastor and asked for prayer and kind of opened up about how it's been a struggle this time around. And immediately that night, I think it was a Thursday night or something, immediately that night, both Paul and I felt relief and like a burden lifted, and like God just picked us up and was carrying us through. And he is still. But it was just amazing. That night, Paul said, I have my Tiffany back, and I'm not perfect. This time around is harder. My faith feels weaker. I feel worn down, but God is still good, and he is still working, and it's gonna be okay one way or the other. My diagnosis is not a scary one. It's still stage 1. It's very treatable. I haven't been given any kind of like months to live or anything like that at all, or but it's just a lot. It's just a lot to deal with. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do chemo. I think that's the thing that really is the most frustrating part of it, is that in less than a week now I'm gonna start chemotherapy, and I just want to be home. We've had many doctor appointments the last week or so. I had to have less tests done, like a CAT scan and bone scan and an echocardiogram, things I've never had before. And there's just time being taken away from my little baby and my daughter. And we have amazing people to watch and to help. You know, my in-laws, they're just like wonderful, but it's still, I just want to be home with her. There's a whole nother video I could do about that, and I probably will, about how, you know, we've dedicated our children to the Lord. And I'm just having to like give up control, a lot of control of my life and of my desires right now. And it's hard not to like try and find a reason, you know. Paul and I like have to remind ourselves that it's not anything we did. It's not because we sinned. It's not because we weren't thankful enough. You know, this is just what God decided was going to be in our lives right now. And there is a purpose for it. And we may not ever know or see that purpose. We may see it one day, but it's happening. And this world is full of suffering. And it is an opportunity for our lives to shine for Christ. And it's an opportunity for us to rely fully on Him. And that's what we're going to do. So again, the diagnosis right now is triple positive invasive ductal carcinoma, I believe. And I start chemo on Tuesday. Today's Thursday, I think. I start chemo on Tuesday. I'm getting TCHP. TC are like these, I'm not gonna try and like read the names. I'll put it in the description, I think. But TC are like the chemotherapy infusion drugs I'll be getting over a course of a couple hours. And then the HP part are the targeted there's still chemotherapy, but targeted medication that's gonna like target that HER2 portion of my cancer. And they were gonna be infusions, but I actually opted to get injections because it would be faster and I won't have to be at the hospital as longer. And it's like actually a new, like only the last 6 months they've been offering those, at what I've heard. And so every Tuesday, or not every Tuesday, so I'm getting 6 rounds 3 weeks apart. So starting on Tuesday, every 3 weeks, I'll be going to the University of Michigan in the morning, and I like meet with my oncologist first. Sometimes I have blood work, then and then I get the infusions. And the first day is going to be really, really long, and I think the rest of them might be slightly shorter, but they're still going to be like hours. And so that will take us until about June. I am going to lose my hair. We went through all the side effects yesterday at a nurse visit, like a nurse education visit, and it was just really heavy learning about all the side effects of these really serious medication. I've never been on medication in my life, like for like little things, but like never like this. Went to the pharmacy and got some like things that are gonna help with all my symptoms yesterday, and it's just it's gonna be rough, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna have to rely on God to deal with, to help me. I'm praying that I have not all these side effects and I have minimum side effects. But okay, so chemotherapy, that'll take us to June, and unless they have to alter things. And then a second mastectomy, or they're gonna go in and remove more tissue. I'm gonna lose my implant and be flat. So probably in July or sometime in the summer. And then depending on how the tumor responds, I might just go right into radiation or more chemotherapy, which we're praying I do not need. We're praying that I respond really well to this course of chemotherapy. The second round would be a different type of chemotherapy. And then hormone stoppers for like 5 or 10 years, but that will be after I'm done with all this treatment. And then the 2 portions that are injections, those are actually every 3 weeks for a year. And so until like next March, I'm gonna be getting those injections. And I'll go over more details about the chemotherapy possibly in another video. But that is the current diagnosis, and it could change. I hope not, unless it changed for the better. So please do be praying about the next visit, chemotherapy appointment. That's kind of the next thing that's happening. We're all caught up on all the other appointments. And then also that my body does respond minimum to the side effects, and that my body responds well to the tumor responds well to the chemotherapy drugs, so that I don't need more chemotherapy in the fall. Those are very specific prayer requests. And then just for us to be able to, us as me and my family, figure out life, you know, right now. I think I'm rambling now, but I think a big part of what I'm struggling with is, like, I feel healthy. Like, I'm not pregnant anymore, and I like feel, I mean, I'm really tired from staying up with her, but I'm not pregnant anymore, and I have a mass, but like it doesn't affect me right now, you know? Like, I feel healthy, I have my energy back, I can walk without my back hurting, and I can bend over because I don't have a huge belly, and I just feel healthy finally again, or like back to normal. But I'm getting ready to start this treatment that's gonna make me feel awful and sick, and I'm gonna lose my hair, and I'm gonna look sick, and it just doesn't feel like me. And so I think that's gonna be hard. So be praying about that as well. Okay, thank you for listening.